Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of From Season 3, Episode 5. Before I jump into my review, make sure to hit that sub button so you don't miss one of my reviews of From. I'm also reviewing Penguin at the moment. Now, we'll start with everything going on in the main timeline, especially with Boyd. Then we'll hit everything going on with Victor and Henry, and then we'll finish off with Julie and Elgin. Now, we continue right where we left off from the end of Episode 4, and they bring Randall inside. His face is all messed up. And of course, he says to Boyd, "You did this to me. You left me," which is just so irrational. Again, I hate when these kind of shows just put so much guilt on characters for leaving someone behind, but in a very complicated, more gray situation than that. So we know probably next week there's going to be some big Randall stuff going on where he's going to look all messed up, but then he's also going to be more angry than he's ever been, if that's even possible. And it might lead to that type of storyline we've seen like in The Walking Dead, where is there someone you have to take care of? Like, is Randall going to be more of a threat keeping him alive at some point? You have to wonder. Now, this is in particular one of the more funny episodes of From, and that is because of Jade. Jade has some great moments here, especially just in the beginning when Boyd tells Jade that Tabitha's back, and then she went through a tree to a lighthouse, and he runs away at that moment to go see her. And then Jade, when he sees them, he says he wants to see the bottle tree, and Jim says, "I have been there, there is nothing to see." And then Jade goes, "Oh, besides the magic tree." Such great delivery there. Jim also mentions to him that the bottles have numbers in them. And Jade's like, "You don't think that's important?" And Jade goes, "F the town meeting." And then he says sorry to Ethan because he said the F word. That was great. Now, Kenny will mention to Boyd that there's something different out there. He's talking about the sounds they hear outside the cabin at night, that it isn't the creatures, it's something else. But Boyd says there's bigger things to worry about. So you see that threat of what's outside the cabin, and also Jasper, which is mentioned before, get kind of pushed to the side for a second, but it's okay with me them doing that though, because we still have 5 more episodes to go after this, so I feel like those are going to be the big kind of things dealt with towards the end of the season. But Boyd also thinks that they left Randall alive, the creatures, to make them look at him during the daytime as a reminder of them because they've gotten too comfortable in the day. I also think it's a fascinating theory because when we get the big reveal what happens to Dale later, that could also be a thing that could be a reminder to them at that pool. Now, this episode still is guilty of scenes I think you can chop out. It has a longer runtime. Again, this is more in like the 55-minute range, or I prefer like last week where it's like 48, where this has the scene even here with Marielle and Christy, and she says it's not her fault what happened to Nikki, and Christy's worried that this might cause her to spiral. There's a couple scenes like this, even Boyd in the bus with Bacta, and she's saying she has his back and sorry she didn't have his back, and it's really just to get Boyd to come out of that bus to find Dale. Like, these are things we don't have to necessarily see. We can kind of put together ourselves. Now, one of my favorite scenes is Boyd holds a meeting at the diner about what happened with Tabitha. The people are angry and they don't even want to hear from Boyd. They want to hear from Tabitha, obviously. Now, when she shows up, Fatima asks her if she asked for help, did she let the police know? And then Tabitha says no. And I love that a non-playable character in the diner says, "Are you effing kidding me?" Why I loved this, and then the other woman going, "You had an opportunity none of us have had before and you blew it." Jim asks, "What would you have done?" And Dale says, "Well, I wouldn't have taken a day trip to the park." I was dying at all this because this is what happened to me when I kind of was really hard on Tabitha, like someone in the diner here in my episode 1 review, and that she was so inactive in what she was doing that I got kind of railed in the comments. But it was funny to see the show actually have that debate acted out in front of us, and some people thinking Fatima completely blew it, or I still kind of feel that way, but I also get the argument that a police officer wouldn't believe what she was saying, she seemed crazy, etc. But I was still leaning more towards what Fatima was saying, because Fatima was really the one leaning into Tabitha here, and I kind of really like to see that someone in the show thought how I did, which is kind of funny. But Boyd is saying a hopeful speech again, because he's saying this is proof that we can do this, get home, because someone already did it. But still, it's going to lead people to want to go to this tree, and I don't blame them. If you were in their shoes, you'd want to do that too. And Dale goes, "Great, where's the tree?" But this is where they should have listened to Boyd, because Boyd tells everyone it's not a magic door, and he went through this tree once, and he ended up in a chimney underground. And Kenny even explains it wasn't even really the tree that got her home, it was the lighthouse she found. But Dale's still like, "Great, we'll go to the tree, and then we'll get to the lighthouse." Now, adding to the great humor I've said about Jade this episode, when he tells Ethan the reason he's not at the meeting, he says any meeting with more than 3 people is pointless. Then Jim shows up and he asks Jim how to go, and Jim goes, "Not great." Then Jade says to Ethan, "See, that was so good." I also like this moment. Jim was rightfully concerned to Tabitha that she might leave her kids again. This is growth in Jim's character because he had it talking to about this from Julie and not like abandoning their responsibility as parents. And I like that he was worried that she might go in this tree again. Like, you just got back. You owe it to your kids, he says, not the people in the diner. So it was a big moment for Jim. I also love that Tabitha tells Ethan to stay behind. She says, you're helping by staying here. This is, again, reflective of what Boyd said to him last episode. Just stay inside, because Ethan can be more dangerous being out of the house. And I love so many moments here with Boyd, and it's such a props to Harold because he's so good at doing lines like when he's yelling at his son Ellis, like, okay, you want to take charge. He's like, pick someone to put on the line, big boy. It's like, it reminded me of the other guys when Will Ferrell's like, you got your big boy pants on? And Boyd will get his proof later in the episode with what happens to Dale, which we'll get to, and he gets a great moment again. Now, a bad moment for Boyd, and he knows it, was when Acosta comes in, the cop, and tells Boyd a suggestion to get people's mind off the tree. She's trying to help him, and Boyd just wants none of it. Yells at her for killing someone and leaving 2 people behind in an ambulance. This is definitely coming from his own guilt about what happened to Randall, but he knows it was so wrong of him to do that to her. Now, we also see Fatima goes in for snack time with the rotten crops, and Ellis walks in, and she decides just to tell him. And she's like, this is all I can get down. I think there's something wrong with the baby. So that story's been really fascinating this season. And I can't wait to see what happens now with Ellis knowing and what it can lead to. And I'm sure Marielle is going to find out about this. Now, one of the scenes I said that just wasn't great was Bacta meeting Boyd in the bus. She's like, you're trying to protect people from being stupid. I just want you to know I'll have your back next time. But again, this just felt like a scene that really could have just been cut. Especially with a character like Bacta we really don't know much about. Now we see Jade will get the numbers from the bottle tree. And they all have 4 numbers. So this will add to theories on Reddit for sure. But they think it might be dates, but then it's not because there's a date that would be way in the future. But who knows? Maybe there's another timeline in the future. But he informs Tabitha he saw the freaky kids too, and that they were laid on slabs of stone, repeating the word unkui. So this is a big word in the show. We don't know what it means. And he says he's never been so scared in his life. But he felt like at that time the threads were finally starting to connect, which I thought was an interesting line. And he says, someone took time to put these bottles, these numbers there. It only looks like chaos until you understand the pattern. I thought that was a great line and great writing there by Jade. And it's something to think about, and that maybe not all of it's red herrings, that, yeah, they do have a purpose. You just got to understand the pattern. Now, Dale shows up to the tree. He's going in. And I love how they did this where then they have Boyd comes off the bus and he hears screaming and Dale is in the pool wall. This was shocking. This was terrifying. And he looks like a messed up version of Han and Carbonite. It is a wild visual and I loved it. And Boyd is about to shoot him out of his misery, but he dies anyway. And Boyd has this great moment where he's like, who's next, huh? Still want to go to the tree? I am trying to keep you alive. I can't help you if you don't let me. So really, really great moment for Boyd there, just kind of giving people some truth. Like, see, I told you, like, this guy is in a pool wall right now. And I'm interested what's going to happen with Donna, because she's going to take losing Dale pretty hard. Anyone from her colony house, she does. And we already know she's at her breaking point. So I do see a change coming in Donna. I don't know for good or for bad, but she's definitely going through a lot. So with the main storyline, I actually really loved everything going on here. And the Dale thing was shocking. And that's what's been great about this season. So many shocking moments happening and big things happening. So really interesting stuff and exciting. Now let's go to everything with Victor and Henry. So Donna informs Victor that his dad is here. And he's triggered by this, of course, and he runs away. But this is where the importance of this relationship that was already established really well with Victor and Sarah. And Victor reflects how he never drew pictures of his dad, of what came before. He's scared of what his dad will think of him. But Sarah's like, I don't know you that well, but you seem like a really good person. I would give anything to feel like a good person again. Maybe he's afraid of not being the dad that little boy remembers. I really like the writing here in this line because it's just perfect lining up with how Sarah would come from that angle of being envious of how good of a person Victor has been and that she wants to get back to that. So it really works, this pairing together, and they're bringing the best out in each other. You even see he lays his head on her. And while Victor's reflecting on what could go wrong, so is Henry. And he reflects how it's easier to tell himself his family was dead as years went by. And he's like, all that time my little boy was here alone. What kind of man gives up on his family? Now, with Henry, we'll see towards the end of the episode, he sees the motel sign and asks, where is the motel to Ethan? I thought that was really interesting because somehow I never thought of that. That never crossed my mind that, yeah, there's a pool there, but where is that motel? So that's Very interesting. I'd love to hear theories on that. But Ethan tells him not to sweat Victor leaving, that Victor gets grumpy. He's like, I know, because he's my best friend. He says, I think he's just scared. And he says, scared that I'm going to die. Everyone he's ever loved here died. So that was really good to hear and really eye-opening about Victor and how smart Ethan is to observe that. So then Ethan and Henry walk into Victor and Sarah. Victor and Henry have their big reunion, and it's really tear-jerking moment, especially Victor saying, I didn't know how to get home. I didn't know how to get home. And Henry says it's okay. Really worked here. I do think it was a little quick for them to reunite, but I still really enjoyed it nonetheless. I'm interested to see how they're going to make this work, though, with Henry and Victor together now. So we'll see. But it also makes me worried about if Henry's days are numbered or not, because I don't know how you keep them together in the show from this point out. Now let's go to everything with Julie and Elgin. Julie skips the town meeting for Fatima's pot, looks out Fatima's window, and remembers a nice memory with Fatima talking about how it was a pretty night sky and not everything's a nightmare here. And it reminded me too, I actually forgot about that story that was really prominent in season 1 about Julie having a little crush on Fatima. Now, Julie will run into Elgin and she wants to hang. So he informs her about the woman he's been seeing and that this woman wants help from him. And Julie says she would take seeing that woman over the screaming she hears in her head now. And that she also feels this horror, and it's weed that is the only thing that's making it quiet. And Julie gets really dark here, and she's like, I think my mom going out doesn't mean a thing. This place exists just to make us suffer. Her getting out was just to give us hope. And I think there's a part of that that is definitely true, but there's a part of that I think is not true. I think that the boy in white pushing Tabitha out and guiding her to this, there is a purpose there, that I don't think it's all just like a torture trap, that there's something they're going to get out of that, and that maybe the entity that's evil, the creatures, is going too far to playing games, and that might actually screw them in the butt. Now, Julie and Elgin will go into the basement of the colony house, find clothing from the 80s, which is interesting, because then you're wondering, okay, whose clothes were these? It was probably people stuck in Frontville from the 80s. You can make probably a whole spin-off series on that. There is some really cool world building they've already set for this show. And they play dress up, but I think the more important thing is they find a camera and take photos of each other, and you've seen that in horror shows. When you take like a Polaroid of each other, they'll probably see something else in that photo that's going to spook them. So we'll see about that. But overall, I really enjoyed this episode, and I enjoyed this one much more on second watch compared to the first watch where I felt like I was a little bored. But this one, when I watched it again, I liked it a lot better. So I suggest if you're a little bored of this one, watch it again. But I do think it is one of the better episodes of the season, and this season is just proving itself to be the best, hands down now so far. So I'm going to give this episode an 8.7. I really liked everything going on with Boyd in particular. It really landed with Victor and his dad, and that horrifying moment with Dale was really scary, and it's still making you interested in what's going to come next. So bravo to this show, really taking up a step in quality to me from the first 2 seasons. Let me know what you thought of it down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. Hit that sub button so you don't miss one of my reviews of From, and I'll see you next time.